Sea of Thieves has been out for 24 hours or so, and
Yeah.
we both played the full game, and we both played the beta together. I
Hmm.
think I've only spent maybe 20 or so minutes playing this game alone, which I recommend you do not do. Um,
Right.
but we did play the beta a few times before the full release, and during those iterations, I think my opinion changed slightly, and now I have a full opinion on the game, and where it's at now, and where it's headed potentially, based on what some of the developers have spoken about and mentioned in terms of a roadmap. Um,
Hmm.
but we're going to talk about where it's at now, what our experience has been, and what we hope for, and maybe where it's going to end up.
Totally.
To start off, the beta, the first time we both played it, was super early version of the game, not completely broken or buggy, but is very empty. Wasn't a lot going on.
Hmm.
Uh, None of the islands we went to had any of the enemies, or I guess I should just say skeletons, because
There were
it's
no apparent direction.
no. There was no tutorial. There's no intro. It just plopped you on an island with your ship, and that was it. There was no direction given. Um,
And it's
so
a beta, so I mean, what
yeah, yeah,
you get
that
what you
it,
get.
yeah, of course, and so it's forgivable because it's not the finished product, but the lack of direction and lack of life to the world was isolating to a certain extent, and uh, that was an issue I think for us for the first few hours that we were playing it, because we were like, what the hell's going on? Where is everything? And
Yeah, totally.
and then we didn't even run into other players until late in that first playthrough, which was, I don't, we probably played like 3 or 4 hours, and finally when we did run into other players, that's where the fun started,
Yeah,
the true fun
absolutely.
of the game, which is getting into ship battles with other players. So where the game's at now, we played a few hours of the finished product, and not much has changed from the beta, sadly. Um,
Yeah.
there's not much added there except the full customization options for your character and your ship, um, which kind of sucks, and it's not what I wanted to see. I was hoping for more in depth. I don't know. I guess maybe I envisioned maybe an RPG element to this game, something that you could build your character and your ship up. You know?
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that. So I think that at no point did Sea of Thieves, or rather, at no point did Rare ever communicate that there was going to be a progression system of any kind. In fact, they were very clear when asked directly that there would not be a progression system, that you would only be obtaining cosmetic items. And I feel like myself, you, the majority of people who expected anything of this game, it just, I guess, assumed that they misunderstood that there was going to be some kind of leveling mechanic or loot of some kind to obtain. And the game has never purported to contain that. We just kind of expected that to be the case.
Right. Yeah. I just assumed that there would be a deeper level than where it's at now, which is
Hmm.
purely cosmetic in terms of ships and your character. The character you choose is randomly generated. They work off a few different templates, but most of them are either like old women, young women. It crosses a big gamut, but they
Hmm.
all relatively look the same at the end of the day. Um, but everything beyond that, all the weapon skins, everything like that, all cosmetic. Which they have said and that's where it's
Right.
going to stand. Um, and that's okay, I think. But at the same time, when you're working in a game that focuses itself on completing quests to earn gold to use that gold to buy the in-game items,
Hmm.
when it's only cosmetic, is there a sense of progression that can actually drive you to finish or complete that game, or continue playing that game for a long duration of time? Because when I think of wanting to complete quests or earn in-game currency through whatever means, the mindset that I have is that I'm doing it to make my character better, or to
Mhm.
enhance my character's abilities or better their standing in whatever world they're in.
And I
And
think that's a traditional lens through which to look at a
sure,
video game, which is not, that's a fair expectation because that's the way that we typically engage with games. And I think that one of the reasons that I had an expectation like that is because I played the alpha and I played the beta, and it wasn't changing in a dramatic fashion. Um, and now I'm playing the full game, and it hasn't changed much since that. And my takeaway or my confusion is in, is this it? Like, this can't be it. We're
mm-hmm.
talking about a first party game from Rare, published by Microsoft, and it's a flagship title, effectively. And you've got sailing, and you've got buried treasure, and you've got a shark. That's it, and skeletons, and that's the whole of the game.
Yeah,
Like, and
literally,
my
that's the summation.
there is there, and then like a kraken, which is a boss of some kind. And I went on the game's like a fan Wikipedia for this game to make sure that this wasn't just early game stuff now that the game is out. And there are just other iterations of skeletons and also a pig and a snake.
And a chicken. Don't forget that
Which,
chicken.
yeah, I think I said chicken already,
Oh, okay.
unfortunately. Yeah, and but like that's it. And in hoping that there's progression or that there's more quests or whatever, I think you, me, and other players are looking at this game and going, this can't possibly be all that there is to it. Because it's just not enough outside of what's there to warrant continuing to engage with these mechanics besides a progression system.
Yeah,
That's the traditional thing that we would expect from something like this.
right. Yeah, I mean, the lack of content is super apparent, and the lack of life in the world is very apparent. I mean, the literal only enemy for the most part are skeletons, which are lifeless beings, and literally like handle themselves as lifeless as possible. They're so dull, they're so clunky, and they're like the least fun enemy to ever fight in any video game is a skeleton. And
They're
that's
very
all you
boring.
fight in Sea of Thieves for the most part. You might run into a snake on an island, but they just stand there while you beat them with your sword.
That's, you know what, the skeleton is an interesting metaphor for the game. I never thought about that.
Yeah, dude. I mean, so we during the last instance we were playing the beta, we're doing a timed event in which you sail to a specific fort or stronghold, and you have to beat down waves of skeletons that were coming at like 10 or 12 at a time, and
Yeah.
all had blunderbusses and were doing massive damage. And it was us, just us two against these waves, and we kept dying and trying to. It was actually fun for a while trying to figure out how we can essentially try to break the game in a way or figure out a loophole in which we could complete this
Yeah, to
because it wasn't
cheese it.
fun. Yeah, cheese it. We wanted to grease the game up.
Yeah.
And we eventually figured out that we could lure them to a specific spot. Someone operates a cannon on our ship, and we just do that, rinse and repeat. And
We must repeated 10 times at least.
yeah, it was over an hour. And
It was 2 hours, in fact.
geez, see, like I don't even want to think about that because that's it's sad.
It was
And
soul crushing.
it was well, the especially soul crushing bit to that is that by the
Well,
time
before we get to that,
okay,
the boss, the final boss of the waves was just a skeleton with a hat on.
in red text describing his
Giving it,
name, and it was like the most like benign, stupid skeleton name ever.
oh man. And then go on. What happened after that,
Well, so
Julian? After
after
we
we
killed the
spent
boss?
another 30 minutes killing the stupid skeleton boss, we got his skeleton key, and like out of nowhere, like magic, an enemy ship appeared, right? So a bunch
Yeah.
of like four other players who must I don't know if they've been watching us the entire time, waiting for our stupid asses to do this lame event. But they showed up literally right when we finished, no sign of
Yeah.
them beforehand.
Right.
And not only that, but we grab the key, head down to the lair that we've been expecting, like mounds of treasure, like thousands of gold doubloons littered across the floor.
It's literally so there was a promo video that in which the developer, head developer, stated there would in fact be so many chests in these caves beneath the skeleton forts that there wouldn't be enough crew to take them all back at once. That's like one of the design points of how many chests were going to be in this cave. And how many were there?
Zero. It was empty. There's none. It was the biggest buzzkill, like I maybe ever,
Yeah,
because
dude, it was such a it was it was a hysterically ironic bummer, man. And like this was the beta, so I was like, all right,
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
But
I never actually confirmed if that was just either like an error, a bug, or if that was intentional. Like they didn't want to have all that loot there in the beta, and that's something you
right.
got to do now that the full game's out. I never
Mhm.
looked that up, but I don't even want to know. I was so like disinterested after that.
Yeah, it was that was a crushing, trying, grueling experience shooting 100 skeletons
Yeah.
over the course of 2 hours. What speaks to the quality of this game is that when the other crew showed up the instant that we finished, that was actually pretty exciting. And
Yeah, that's cool.
I jumped off the ship because I was on the ship waiting for you to go get the chests,
Hmm.
and I turn around and it's just this huge bow of a or stern of a galleon just bears down on us and smashes into the ship. I jump off, I grab an explosive barrel off the island, I swim around the island, and while they're trying to snipe Julian, I swim the explosive barrel up to their hull and just blast it to shit and
Yes.
die. It
That's
was rad.
that's awesome. That's a cool moment. And that's the thing is like our instances our experience playing Sea of Thieves was a series of cool moments but spread out far enough to where there was long stretches of like kind of nothing in boredom. And then we'd
Mhm.
have these peaks of like, whoa, whoa, like freaking out. Like the first time we ran into other players, like
Yeah,
our excitement level went through the roof.
yeah.
And the first time we sunk a ship, there's peaks of excitement, but that wears off fairly quickly. And then you realize that that may be something that is going to wane
Mhm.
fast. And
So I feel like I wouldn't have a problem with whether or not there's content, so to speak, in this game if there were enough mechanical ways with which to engage. But it's very limited right now. You've got the ship, which has sails, and it uses the wind, and you've got to like strategize on how to manipulate the ship to best use the wind and deal with the storms around and everything. And that's interesting to an extent. And then the combat is with your cannons, and you can sink ships shooting in particular places. So there's a strategy to that. The hand-to-hand combat is not very fun. You got a sword, pistol, shotgun, sniper rifle. That's it. And you know, killing dudes puts them in a respawn area, so it's kind of like a timeout, so that they can't come right back. But there are no real stakes outside of the stuff that you get from doing quests. And then the only thing that you get from quests is money. And if you are looking for more money, go kill some dudes and get some money. Or like if you've got a bunch of money, that heightens the intensity of being attacked, um, which gives the combat stakes. But if you are not interested in getting new gear, and it's totally valid not to be interested because it doesn't have any material effect on the game, then potentially like the game is very limited in how high it can increase its stakes. And that is I think the biggest downfall that the game has right now is just mechanics are limited. And when you do engage with those mechanics, you eventually ask yourself why. Like, why am I going to do this?
yeah, exactly. Like we jumped into the full game and started doing some of the new quests that weren't available in the beta. Like they now have these basically bounty missions where you go to an island and you have to kill a skeleton.
Waves of
And
skeletons.
yeah, and it's the same thing. It's just waves of skeletons, and it seems to be that over and over again. It's
Yeah.
just these. bounty missions where we go kill a group of skeletons, or you have your standard fetch quests,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really it. And then you have that random Kraken event, but that's random. You don't get to choose when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's super limited now, and I've been trying to figure out where that this game could go, what
Mm-hmm.
direction that they could head to open it up and and craft the right content for the game. You know, because the game's gorgeous, it's beautiful to look at. The ocean physics and the ocean is simply the best, one of the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah, it's unparalleled. It's
Yeah, it's
fucking
great.
crazy.
Um, so they have the sandbox to build in for sure. And so far, the developers, they have not been too revealing with their roadmap beyond like a few things. Like I was reading that they were one of the first things they're going to introduce are pets to the game, and this
Mm-hmm.
is going to be the first microtransaction. So
What?
yeah, you're going to be able to, I assume, earn enough gold to buy them also, but you'll be able to use your real money to buy in-game pets. And I saw that you could get a parrot, a monkey, or a cat,
Okay.
and they will do various things. Like I think you can actually fire them out of a cannon, which is silly, but they will help you in battle to some degree. But along with all the other stuff, they're going to be mostly cosmetic,
Mm-hmm.
and and then beyond that, the next thing that they were talking about adding are potions that alter the way your character looks,
Hmm.
in terms of like age. Like they
Oh.
kept saying like we want to introduce a potion that makes you look older. And I was like, why? That's
What a
so
weird thing
weird.
to fixate on.
Yeah, like I've read multiple articles where the developers in different interviews keep preaching on this like old age potion that they want to add to the game, which is just I don't get it. It's weird.
So, in the lead up to this game, I was thinking a lot about really the only other pirate game with which I have any experience, Sid Meier's Pirates, which is a old game from '87, I think is the first published date, and then they made a like a remastered version of it in the early 2000s, which is the one that I played, and I showed it to you uh,
Yes.
because I thought that this is what I would like Sea of Thieves to take influence from. That it has all kinds of little compelling reasons to engage with it, all kinds of different little mechanics, systems uh, that make it really addictive to play. And I don't need like Sea of Thieves to be addictive, but I would like to see that kind of depth. So, what did you get out of Pirates?
So what I think one of the most compelling things about Sid Meier's Pirates for me is I like the idea of being part of a faction and having
Hmm.
that faction give me orders or give me hints or nudge me in the right direction,
Hmm.
and then acting on behalf of those. So in Pirates, you can join like the French or the Dutch or whatever, and
Hmm.
then you could basically do missions for them, attack other the other colonies or whatever under the name of that banner, right? Under the
Hmm.
flag of that country. And I think that is enough alone. If they would have added that into Sea of Thieves in some aspect, would be good. Because they have these factions in Sea of Thieves, but beyond doing missions and gaining reputation with each of them, they all seem to get along. They're not at
Yeah,
war with each other. Um,
and
and
they're
then
not
again,
represented in any way in the game. They're just like statuesque quest givers who
exactly.
just stand still in their tents.
Yeah. And they provide like random bits of dialogue. You can converse with them, but the dialogue bits don't change as far as I can tell.
Mm.
Um, and Pirates is so good at capturing like what it feels like. And I didn't even play it for that long, but definitely the best ship battle sim that I played, where that give you a ton of options to use. And for some
Hmm.
reason, when we were playing, the other ships kept wanting to just crash into me and go sword on sword. But
Yeah,
so, I, but but
yeah,
the ship battle is just super well crafted. And did you ever play Black Flag, the Assassin's Creed game?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. So what did you think about that one?
Well, I didn't get far enough to really get into the black to the sea combat, but from what I saw, that is an well. Tell me, can you take ships in Black Flag?
Uh, I also didn't play enough of it.
Okay.
That was a game that was like a launch title, I think, on the Xbox One,
Hmm.
and I did play a good amount of it. But I think when it first came out, I think it had a lot of issues. So I stopped playing it. I probably played like 3 or 4 hours, but not enough to form a full opinion. But so I couldn't tell you if you can take other ships, but I
Hmm.
do know that the ship combat in that game is pretty good. And
Yeah.
they did have different like options in terms of cannonballs. They weren't just cannon. You could have like the grape shot and the chain shot. I believe. I think you had those options available to you in that.
That's tight. Like, there's strategy to what you're trying to do. So one of the things that I find problematic about the combat in Sea of Thieves is the only end game to the combat is sinking the ship. You can't take the ship because the ship is the other player's spawn point. You can't claim it, to my knowledge, anyway. I mean, I tried many times in the beta to do this, and I haven't read anything about it changing. But you can't take the ship and declare it yours or declare it not theirs anymore at any rate. So like if I were to board another player's ship and just start sailing away with it and kill the guy who owns it, he's just going to spawn in the bilge area and come back up
Yeah,
again
exactly.
indefinitely.
Yeah,
So there's no incentive to do anything except for sink them. Whereas like in Sid Meier's Pirates, you've got grape shot to kill the crew so that they fire more slowly, or you have chain shot to take down their sails so you can take all of their goods and also the ship when you're done, or you have regular cannons with which to just sink the fucking thing.
yeah,
And all that's really interesting. And there's, in pirates, like maybe I don't have any space for more goods, so maybe I just want to sink this thing, get it out of my way, or maybe I need more crews, so I want to take down the sails so I can hire them, and stuff like that. And the Sea of Thieves needs that kind of thing real bad.
yeah, definitely. I mean, if you can even in the future create a crew
Mm-hmm.
uh, that you can have multiple captains of, even,
Mm-hmm.
and within that crew, there's a fleet, and you have multiple ships. You can fly under the same Jolly Roger, same banner,
Mm-hmm.
and they all operate with the same mindset, right? And this
Mm-hmm.
would be something that would fall into their whole community aspect of the game, which is something they've preached very heavily. Is we want this, to be a very community oriented game. We want players talking to each other. We want people to jump into this game with a headset on and get into conversations with other people. That's the type of game that they want.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's something that they could do in the future to encourage that, is to encourage sailing in large fleets, have some sort of way to make sure that you spawn into the same lobby as your other compatriots, because that's something we also were having trouble with, was just
Right.
while in game inviting other people is difficult.
But you
It's
can't.
not intuitive. So yeah, I mean, I think that if they want to head in that direction with a very community based game, they need to encourage that in meaningful ways that feel good. And right now, there's also I think that's lacking. So
Yeah, they need to increase, in my opinion, for me to continue playing this game for, any meaningful amount of time. They're going to need to increase the amount of systems and increase the variety of mechanics. Otherwise, I'm gonna get bored sinking ships because, like, you sink a ship, if that player doesn't like you or isn't happy with that, they're just gonna pursue you indefinitely. Because, like, what have they got to lose?
hmm
There's no, a feeling like there's something to lose is going to make the the thrill of combat or trying to avoid it much more interesting. And there's just nothing to. There are no stakes.
the stakeless game. That's what we'll call it for now. So Sea of
I'll go
Thieves
with
is
that.
available for $59.99 at retail, or you can do the recommended thing: sign up for the Xbox Game Pass and get it basically for free because there's a 2 week trial. So go ahead, Download the Game Pass, set it up, and get Sea of Thieves for free, and play it for a week, and then decide if it's something you want to pay for. That's my recommendation. Official recommendation.
Mine too. Official recommendation.